a historical monument, or we call it a monument, you will find that they're sending the history teacher, and as on today they'll be sending the PTI for discipline purposes, because the mindset is a monument has to be visited by the history teacher. And what is the history teacher telling the children about? Only the content which is available on Google. When the monument was being built, there was no history. History came in much later, 50 years, 100 years, then people start talking about engineering of the monument. So when you talk about engineering of the monument, that is definitely not possible without physics, chemistry, maths. So why is a PCM teacher not able to see that part? Or maybe, this is a mindset. So principals were teachers earlier and they only were going with the history teachers along. That's what they've seen, so they're continuing that. So luckily for us, when I gave this draft to the then Education Secretary, Anita Karwal ma'am, she just said, go ahead. Means don't even stop, just go ahead. Now, why is an arch gate there in a monument? The arch gate is there because an arch gate holds more weight as compared to a rectangular gate. That is science. Now, there's a jali, there's a grill type of thing. You'll find that it has small holes, this size. Now, if you just check your breath, you open your full mouth and breathe out, and then you put your mouth small and breathe out. Air is cooler, a smaller one. Now, that is the reason for the grill to be there. So, we've done 200 monuments, so we can talk so much more about it. What is the stone used for Haji Ali? That in 400 years, water has not been able to come in. So when the Haji Ali was built, the builder had planned it was going to be in the seashore. So then the stone had to be specific. That specific stone comes under chemistry. They were doing the science to understand which stone should be used there. We went to, it's very interesting, like we did this festival in Bombay. We had Haji Ali, we had this Mahalakshmi temple, we had Siddhi Vinayak temple, and we had Mount Mary's Church. So we picked up all these four. So fascinating to understand was the reason for them to be set up. Why were they built? There was a reason for Haji Ali to be built. And these were built by individuals. Haji Ali was set up by one person. Siddhi Vinayak was set up by a couple. Mahalakshmi was set up by a couple. You go down to any historical fact of a temple, it may have been certain rulers, but the individuals also who built up that stuff. There was no ruler to build it. It was by an individual. The logistics of why to pick up that stone, why to have a dome, why to have those. If you go to any fort, any temple, if it's a higher one, you'll find that the steps are very big in the beginning. That is because you have energy in the beginning. On your energy goes down, so they have to make you go up. Apart from this, realize that as you're going up, this is a step, this is the, you climb on that. The width is not going to be small, it's going to be a little wider. Because if you're climbing, you will not be able to balance if you've got a small gap on that stair there. It has got to be big. Otherwise, you'll fall very far. So it cannot be that steep. It has to have an inclination that way. And the people are able to climb. This place in South Hyderabad, you have a lot of forts where you realize there's, so you have a mic, not a mic, something there people can speak and the talk person can hear. 500 years back, there was no electricity that time. So what was it there? So look at that system which must have been there for the sound to reach up. Let's go down to Jaipur and see the Jaigarh Fort. Jaigarh Fort was a place where the warriors could hide in place of war. It was their place to work, and it could survive without water for 3 years because they had the biggest tank of the world. And on that mountain, everything, whenever it rained, the water would come into the tanks. You're not supposed to give them instructions. Like, I worked it, so I've spoken to principals. I thought we should give them instructions first. But Anju ma'am, MGI, she said, Sandeep, first time, go blank. So then they are allowed to think. Otherwise, you've given them a checklist. Now they're only checking that. So they're not thinking beyond it. So let them think, let them observe. And send those academic teachers there, because let them also explore. They come back and they start thinking, they brainstorm, and then they'll find more principles to be applied there. So first visit, the children should go just like that, without giving any instructions to them, and let them explore that why things should happen, which our education unfortunately is not allowing to happen. So the teacher comes with a textbook, gives the instructions, you are not allowed to think. But such places will allow them to think. Why that particular tree? Why? And go down to history and say which trees must have been planted first. There's always a reason why the people there must have planted those trees. Imagine it to a fort. How would the stones be coming there? So you'll find a lot of ramps there, because that is where the elephants and horses rode upon. So the ramp concept is that old. It is that old. And what happened? The domes, why are they like that? The pillars, you'll find certain pillars are circular, certain are rectangle. There's a reason for that also. So the fun part of this entire program is that they're allowed to explore and think. And I even tell the teachers, don't worry if you don't have an answer, because at times teacher may not have thought on that level. So just find out, experiment, explore. So this 100 experiments are all tested out in the monuments to see. And the other interesting part, say for example, Bombay, Worli ceiling. The pillars are there for that Worli sink. And what was the revolution created when this was being built? So in history books, we only have the Narmada Andolan. That is only that we talk about. Now, all children across the India will not be able to relate to Narmada Andolan because they've not seen it. Yeah. But every city has an Andolan. Something was we built, there must have been some crisis somewhere. Yeah. So when we did our research, Worli ceiling, the Andolan came by the Koliwada fishmongers. Kohli, sorry. Yeah. Why? Because now their streamers could not go beneath that, and that would also be a displacement of the fish against it, and the pillars are at a particular distance, which is not disturbing that economy of that community. It's come down to Gateway of India. So much of fun when we went there. So now the children have started thinking. So we said, "Acha, theek hai, this modern stone is getting deteriorated and geographical issues. What would be the reason behind it?" So of course they said sea waves, sea moisture, salt. So you'll find that there will be some salt deposits also on the rock because the salt is even carried into the moisture that way. We said, great. And what should we do now? And they said, sir, there's a lot of fumes coming because of the streamers. Oh, yeah. They are all going to the Ajanta Ellora, I think, the Elephanta Caves. So I said, now what should happen? They said, so why can't we file? First, all streamers should be having a pollution certificate. Yeah.